first question on your set of questions today, or what are the two functions of Congress? I can imagine this being a multiple choice question. Seems like an easy multiple choice question. What are the two functions of Congress?
Legislate?
Yeah?
Create legislation and appoint the judiciary.
Close. How are these? They represent and they govern. Okay? So, within that governing, they're legislating, making laws. They're creating federal courts, right? Okay? They're also overseeing the executive. They're taxing and funding services. They're declaring war. Can the president declare war? No! The president cannot declare war. Only Congress can declare war. When is the last time Congress declared war?
Korea?
When? World War II. So I wasn't even alive, right? And you guys know that I'm ancient. So, it's been a really long time since Congress has declared war. Only Congress can declare war. They can make all laws necessary and proper to carry out enumerated powers. That elastic clause we talked about really a whole bunch early on, right? But they have two functions. Representation of the people, which we're going to talk about on Wednesday. And also there's a video where it keeps saying, we talked about previously, but we're talking about it on Wednesday, all right? And governing, which is what we're talking about today. The second question on your list of questions are, what are the two key formal powers of Congress? Ready? The power to make laws and the power of the purse. Okay? What's the power of the purse? Who said that? Budget, you're exactly right. Now, does that mean that the president has no power over the budget? No, but what kind of power does the president have?
Veto.
What? Can veto the whole thing, right? Or can sign it, okay? But cannot line item veto it, which governors can do in almost every state, okay? And as a matter of fact, the U.S. Congress passed that in the 1990s, allowing the president to use a line item veto. The only president is passed by a Republican Congress. The only president who was ever able to use a line item veto was a Democratic president, Bill Clinton, okay? And then the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional. Congress is responsible for the budget, okay? Congress has a constitutional duty to create the budget, which means that Congress can use its funding power to stop the executive from doing things. A good example of this is Vietnam, right? During the Vietnam conflict, the president wanted to expand. Congress said no. The president said, I am the commander-in-chief while the military is called up. Therefore, I'll do what I want. Congress said, try doing it without money. Okay? And so, can cut off funding. And they did. This is a power shared by both the House and the Senate. And in order to become a law, a bill must pass both the House and Senate in exactly the same format. Hey girls, if you guys, you can text to each other if you wanted, but like everybody down here can hear your whole conversation. Has to be in exactly the same format, all right? Down to the periods and commas. And it only takes 50%. Now we're going to talk about in a little bit what it means for it to take more. Because sometimes we think about with the Senate, people say, hey, this can't pass the Senate because there's not 60 people. And that's clearly more than a majority. It's more than 51, right? But there's a reason why, and we'll talk about that. In the House, The House has to initiate revenue bills or tax bills. Why is a tax responsible to do that? Why is the House responsible to do that? It's seated in the revolution, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say because they partially control the purse, I guess, the budget.
Okay, because they partially control the purse, you're right.
Because, what a purpose of like no taxation without representation, and it was direct representation in the House as opposed to the Senate, which was appointed.
Exactly, right? So, from the revolution, it's no taxation without representation, right? And the most direct representation we still have today is the House of Representatives. It's apportioned by population. There are 435 of them. They get elected every 2 years. And so that means they're closest to the people. When we say, hey, I can't believe Congress passed those taxes. We didn't vote for that. Yeah, you did. You voted for your representative. No taxation without representation doesn't mean you have to directly vote on taxes. It means that your closest representative has to. They're specialists because there's so many of them. And so you have people who are specialized in things like agricultural issues or banking issues, right? Defense. You have specialists, right? Because there's so many of them. In the Senate, on the other hand, the Senate has a really big role in advising and consenting the president. What are some of the powers of the Senate that are distinct that are included in this role? Yeah. They do. They confirm Supreme Court, not actually the entire judiciary, every single federal seat. And we'll talk about that when we get to the judiciary in a couple of weeks. But one of the things that we know about that is, for example, there was a Supreme Court justice confirmed this past week, right? Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, right? 2 years ago, and she was confirmed 53 to 47. 2 years ago, the exact same Senate confirmed her as the Circuit Court of Appeals judge, something like 70 to 30. Right? There's a lot more politics when we talk about Supreme Court justices. But yes, advise and consent. What else? Because not only judicial appointments, what other kinds of appointments? Huh?
Committee appointments.
Committee. What'd you say? I'm sorry.
Committee appointments.
Committee appointments. No, not committee appointments for the president, but cabinet appointments. Right? So the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State. But there are many, many things that are much lower than that too, that are appointed by the president and have to be confirmed by the Senate. It's a majority, right? In addition, if the president makes a treaty, what has to happen?
They have to ratify it
They have to ratify it. How do they ratify it?
by a supermajority.
By what?
Supermajority?
A supermajority. Do you know what it is?
60%. 60 out of 100.
It's more than that. It's
66.
2/3, right? 67%. Because listen, remember the Constitution where it says the Constitution is the supreme law of the land and the laws that are made under it, and also treaties that are made under it? That goes way above state law. So sometimes you hear state politicians saying, oh, well, we have to follow this international law and that's not fair. It's not exactly international law. It's law that not only the president signed, but 2/3 of the Senate agreed to. Right? That's significant. All right? So, because of that, they're also experts in foreign policy. Kind of like every member of the House knows something about tax policy, every member of the Senate, because they all want to be president too, knows something about foreign policy. They have 6-year terms. If you guys were in my state government class, we've gone to the legislature. A couple of you have gone with me. But we also have people in, and one of the questions my students often ask is about term limits. And they say, what do you think about term limits? And without fail, every single one of them, and understand that there is a super majority of Republicans in the Oklahoma legislature, they say term limits are bad because I don't know my job. It takes me 6 years to get where I know my job. Okay? So we see the same sort of thing happening here. Senators have time to learn their job. And also, unlike a 2-year term, they don't have to run for office constantly. They can spend about 3 years working. Okay? There's only 100 of them, and so they consider themselves to be much more equal, and so they make rules that way. They're generalists. They know a little bit about everything. I think I'd be a great senator because I know a little bit about everything. Now, it's details. Those kill me. And there are 2 for every state, okay? And we talked about this a little bit. Remember, Wyoming has 500,000 people and has 2 senators. California has 40 million people and has 2 senators. So it's not people who are being represented by the Senate, it's the states. Because of the way that they're structured, they're different internally. The House is much more hierarchical, there's much more party loyalty. The House Rules Committee and the Speaker together set the rules for debate and who can even speak on the floor and what bills are presented. If the Democrats have the majority, then there's some insulation for seniority within committees. So I've worked on this committee for the last 20 years. I've been elected from my district in Iowa. I know about agricultural policy. And so I'm the chair because I've been here the longest, right? And so there's some insulation if Democrats are in charge. If Republicans are in charge, there is no insulation. It's all leadership driven. If you do not put forth the bills that the leadership wants, then you are ousted and somebody else is put in your place. The leadership determines chairmanships. Now, in the Senate, it's a little bit different. Both Democrats and Republicans, it doesn't matter who's in charge, there's some insulation for seniority and expertise between both parties. There was, in 1994, I told you guys, the House is a majority Republican House for the first time in 60 years. And the people who had been in the minority, Newt Gingrich, for example, who becomes Speaker of the House, was so angry about the way he'd been treated on these committees that he made it really, really difficult for anything to come out of committees without leadership say so. This is something that Republicans agree to every 2 years in terms of their hierarchy. They get to vote on it. This is not constitutional. This isn't a law. And this is something that Democrats vote on as well. In the Senate, they tried to do that at the same time, and the Senate Republicans rebelled. They said, no, we're not going to do that. And so there's a lot more power in chairmanships with seniority in the Senate. But they all have more power anyway. There's a lot more negotiation in the Senate, but they also have something called the filibuster, which we will talk more about later. But that supermajority of 60, that's what's needed to cause cloture, which ends debate. Filibuster is unlimited debate. And that debate can be anything. Reading Green Eggs and Ham, reading the phone book, reading the Encyclopedia Britannica, reading text messages from my husband, right? Whatever, okay? It's whatever you want it to be, you just can't yield the floor. Cloture is the only thing that will end it. So, we're going to skip that. We're going to come back to it in just a second. So how does a bill become a law? I noticed that this was not embedded properly in my last class, so I'm going to escape for a second. See if we can play Eric's...
I sent you another link.
Well, I think it'll play now. Let's see.
I got the poll ready.
I'm missing a code here.
Look at your email again.
It's a beautiful country we all call home. Our families enjoying their time in great outdoors.
Look at your
and bustle
email,
of our big
Alex.
cities.
Okay. We'll try it again.
I sent a YouTube link. It's getting official now.
It's a beautiful country we all call home. Our families enjoying their time in the great outdoors, to the bustle of our big cities, great outdoors, to the bustle of our big cities. Without voting for Eric Tapia, this could all be in danger. Without voting for Eric Tapia, our cities could all be in danger. If you vote for others, our cities could be reaching in furrows. If you vote for others who are inexperienced.
Okay, we're gonna try one more time, guys. Isaiah, why did you end up being
It's a beautiful country we all
Wait on us. You're a hater.
call home. It's a beautiful country.
Okay, I'm gonna try it one more time, and then I'm going to surrender on this, okay?
It's a beautiful country we all call home. Our families enjoying their time in the great outdoors, to the bustle of our big cities. America is a great place. Without voting for Eric Tapia, this could all be in danger.